It's time to get your geek on with Dave Gremillion.
I'm excited, man, is what I am. I'm pumped.
Why are you excited, Mr. David?
Because I've met this gentleman several times, and every time...
And he still calls us.
And he still calls in, amazingly enough. The restraining order must have been lifted at some point. And every time I've met this gentleman, it's been an absolute delight. One of the questions I have to ask him, remind me about this, like, what does he just like live off of Red Bull? Because the energy this guy has is incredible and contagious. So let's go ahead and we will bring him on, the man of 1,000 voices.
Literally.
He's been doing Obi-Wan Kenobi now for 15 years. And he'll be doing it again when the Clone Wars comes back. We want to welcome onto the show for the very first time, Mr. James Arnold Taylor.
Well, hello there, I should say, as Obi-Wan Kenobi, shouldn't I?
I love it. He ended with a hello there. I love it. How are you doing,
Thanks for
sir?
having me on. What a privilege and honor to be here with all of you and to get my proverbial geek on, as it were.
Okay, we're going to have liners to spare if you keep this up. I mean, we'll keep this recording for years to come.
Sure.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for taking time out of what has to be a very busy schedule to chat with us here. Now, many people, they try to be a voice actor, and maybe they do a couple of things here and there, but you have absolutely killed it. You have 244 acting credits on your resume. You have 4 award wins on your resume, and your very own podcast, Talking to Myself, which anyone can find on pretty much any platform that's out there. But I have to ask, when during your long career did you know that you were really going to make it in this industry?
Not until you read all those credits. I didn't realize, man,
244.
I've made it. No, that's very kind of you. First off, thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is one of the things. I'm kind of a rare bird in voiceover in that I have always wanted to be a voice actor since I was 4 years old. Most voice actors kind of stumble into it, or they're character actors where they did something on television at one point, or they were stage actors, or they're in movies, and then they realize they've got a knack for it, or they have a unique voice. I have always wanted to do it, always been a nerd about doing voices and impersonating people and hearing different characters and such. And so I pursued it. I started in radio many years ago when I was 17 years old, and I literally I went to the radio station and asked, how do you get into radio, and started sweeping up and watching the DJs. I would sit in and watch their shows. I just picked up everything I could, and I tried to just be a sponge. And then all these years later, here we are. But I did that, and I did stand-up comedy, and I always was doing voices in them. And so it was a perfect storm for me.
So you hear that, Goose? One day, if you ever decide to grow up, you too could be a really famous voice actor. It's possible.
Voice actor, you say? Yes, yes.
Well, I'm sorry. Did we get Tom Kane to call in? Was that Tom right there? No,
That's right.
it wasn't Tom. Now, wait a minute. Now, Goose, you gave me hell earlier because you made me promise not to do my Matthew McConaughey, and you roll out with...
And then he drops a Yoda in on you there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the gloves are definitely coming off now. So now... Good writers read other authors. Good actors, they watch other actors. Is there a particular voice actor that you admire? It may not even be somebody that you've worked with, but somebody that you've listened to and you're like, man, they really nailed it.
I've been really blessed to be able to work with pretty much everybody in voice right now in Hollywood and stuff, from Frank Welker and Jim Cummings, who are two of my great heroes and also very good friends now, which I'm just absolutely humbled to say. And if your listeners don't know those names, they need just look them up, and they would find IMDb listings that make mine look like, a receipt at the store.
A pamphlet.
They are in fact, Frank Welker and Jim Cummings are in more blockbuster films than even Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks. They have been in more films, successful #1 hits at the blockbuster, type film, because of the work they've done in animation through Disney and such, but also adding their voices to things where you'd never think there'd be a need for a voice. In a live-action thing, dropping in the sound of an animal or a creature. These guys are just monsters in voice. And so Jim Cummings is, of course, the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, too. Like in the latest Christopher Robin film that came out, he was Winnie the Pooh and Tigger in that. I got to work in that a little, did some of Ewan McGregor's doubling, and I did some doubling for Piglet in that. But Jim is just a fantastically wonderful, humble man, and so is Frank Welker, who is Frank is the voice of Scooby-Doo and Freddy on Scooby-Dooby-Doo. You know, he does all of those, as well as Megatron, and I mean every voice you can imagine and every animal you can imagine. So the two of them, Rob Paulson, Maurice LaMarche, Jess Harnell, they're all friends of mine, but they're all just amazingly talented people. Tara Strong, Gray Delisle, you know, they're all wonderful folks. The voice acting community, we don't get a lot of spotlight on us, so we tend to kind of just love what we do and share with each other and tricks of the trade and such. And so, you know, it's a pretty open, humble group of folks. And then there's me with my big ego. But no, it's pretty great. I also got to work with Don Messick. When I was a young man, I was working in radio, and I did a couple radio commercials with him. Don Messick was the original voice of Scooby-Doo. He was Boo Boo Bear. He was Papa Smurf. He was Mr. Ranger. He was so many voices, amazing, wonderful voice actor. And I worked with him, and I called him up one day, looked him up in the phone book, asked if he would go to lunch with me and share with me about voiceover, and he did. And that was when I was about 18 years old, and he just was so kind. And so I've always wanted to put that energy back out into everything I do and pay it forward, as it were, with other folks.
Now, I think if we could get some, this has got to be a guaranteed billion hit view on YouTube. We need to get you, Gray Delisle, Jim Cummings, Frank Welker, and maybe like Vanessa Marshall together. Sit down, play poker, but you have to play in character. And you can switch characters, but you can never be yourself. It's always different voices.
If friend of the show, Alvaro de la Fuente, is listening to this show, I'm ACCC 2019, baby.
Yes, Alamo City Comic Con will have the greatest poker game ever. We'll set up a panel room. It'll be, oh my God, we'll get so many views. It'll be perfect. I love it.
That's right. Yeah, I visited Alamo City Comic Con a couple years ago. I had a great time with everybody there, and I believe that's the last time I saw you, Dave.
It was
over there.
Except
you were giving some type of belt buckle to Jeremy Bullock.
Okay, funny story.
Actor that portrayed Boba Fett in the original Star Wars movies.
Now, I spoke to him. We interviewed him on the show as well, I think twice in 2016. And when I spoke to him, he said, Dave, I've been in movies for over 50 years, but I never did a Western. And I love Westerns. And I said, okay, well, you're coming to Texas. There's a quick way to rectify this. So we gave him one of those giant hubcap-sized belt buckles with inscribed at the top was Jeremy Bullock and the bottom was Boba Fett. I think it was the least we could do.
Yeah,
so.
Beautiful. Really beautiful, and then of course wonderful.
And then we'll see each other again because we're headed to the podcast stage for Star Wars Celebration in Chicago in April. So we'll
very good. Yeah,
we'll definitely have to shake hands up there. Now, is there a particular voice actor that you'd love to work with that you just haven't yet?
No, like I said,
you've worked with everybody.
Really fortunate with voice acting. You really get to work with, and I've worked with so many people in Hollywood. You know, not just voice actors. So many celebrities, from Johnny Depp to Patrick Stewart, to Sam Jackson, all in between, and everybody's lovely. I have no bad stories of any celebrities. I double for a lot of celebrities, so if they're not available, I step in and fill in for them. If, Christopher Walken needs someone to come in and, give a little more cowbell, I might do it. It's crazy. Or Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow, love. Have you never heard of my ship, the Black Pearl? I'll come in, I'll do his voice, right, savvy. Of course, Ewan McGregor for Star Wars. I've actually been doing the voice of Obi-Wan for 18 years.
18?
15 is, I guess, what it would show on the things because it takes several years to make this stuff. But it is coming up on 18 years now. I've been the voice of Obi-Wan for everything from films to television to video games and toys and all in between. So very, very blessed to do that. The voice of, yeah, Bud Dabadoo, Fred Flintstone, Wilma, Bonnie. Also voiced Johnny Test, who's 11 years old and totally awesome, and we did 6 seasons of Johnny Test, so if people know that show, that was me, along with The Beekeeper, Dark Vegan, Hank Anchorman, Mr. Mittens, and a bunch of other characters on that show. So there you go.
Yeah, it's funny, that's a brilliant segue into my next question, which is, speaking of Star Wars, the fan base since 2012, since the Disney buy-out of Lucasfilm, To say it's divided is kind of an understatement right about now. And you've had articles in USA Today and Time, and everyone's talking about it. But what is your point of view regarding the state of the fans since then?
Well, I think the fans are still absolutely wonderful and the reason for any success in Star Wars in any way, shape, or form. It is all about the fans. George Lucas always knew that and always made it a point to allow fans the freedom to express their love in every which way they could by, things like the 501st or the Rebel Legion, these various garrisons that are cosplayers that dress up and then do fundraising and goodwill for people by coming to places like children's hospitals dressed as their favorite characters from Star Wars, to fan films and all of that. So I think that if Disney embraces what George has always embraced in that and being open to the fans and hearing them, which it seems as though they are, I've been very fortunate to work in the last 4 films. I did voices in Solo and Rogue One and Force Awakens and Last Jedi. And, no matter what people think of the movies or what have you, wherever they fall, even with the prequels, I think the one thing we can appreciate is the passion that people have for this galaxy far, far away and how vocal they are about it. And so that's certainly been the thing for me is just embracing that wherever I can. And I think that for the most part, that's what most of the actors do. And so if Disney does that, I think they're in good shape.
All right. Well, now let's kind of shift gears a little bit here.
Sure.
Still talking Star Wars, but the Clone Wars. All right. So Dave Filoni dropped the bomb on everybody that the Clone Wars is coming back. How did you first hear about the news?
Well, it's funny. It's a very, very Hollywood story. Let me tell you. No, I was actually at the Disney lot doing some voices for the movie Solo at the time. And I was talking with Matthew Wood, who is, of course, General Grievous, as well as the Oscar-nominated sound designer for all of the Star Wars films that you currently have out there, as well as many other movies. And he's a voice actor as well. And so we were talking, we were doing some voices, and he said, there's this rumor going around that Clone Wars could come back. I said, get out of town. No, I turned into Marty McFly. I went, whoa, wait a second. Whoa, Doc, this is heavy. No, wait, you mean to tell me the Clone Wars is going to come back? Great Scott, Marty, that's right. Anyways, he says that, and I go, okay, we'll see what happens. And then within the week, I got a call from them, and they said, guess what? We're going to bring it back. Now, that was back in February of this year, and then they didn't give the news until July, I should say, at Comic-Con. So that just goes along with the territory of being a voice actor. You have to hold your tongue on a lot of things. You cannot talk about it. So for many, many months, I knew about it and was very excited, but couldn't tell anybody. So that's why it's great to talk about it now.
It reminds me that George Lucas actually broke the news to Mark Hamill and now the late Carrie Fisher about the sellout in 2012. He told them at the celebration in August, but nobody knew till Halloween. And they were going to launch movies, and he told them all about the movies they were going to launch. And, of course, Carrie Fisher said she was, yes, I'm in, no problem, I'm in. And Mark was like, I don't know, maybe, we'll see. But, the secrets that y'all have to keep under your hat, I'm sure the non-disclosure agreements are, of course, 18 miles long, and the lawyers have sniper rifles just in case. But, that's the secrecy. That's admirable for y'all to keep that under your hat for so long.
Well, I think we love the surprise of it. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, and I loved that you didn't expect these things. I didn't expect when I saw Empire Strikes Back that Darth Vader was going to drop the bomb on Luke that he did. And so we grew up with that stuff. And I've talked with Mark. Mark Hamill is a dear friend, and we've talked about that a lot, especially when he was recording or shooting these new movies, of the magic of not knowing being a fan is wonderful. To go in and be surprised. So we all appreciate that. So I think that that's what we really try to get away from, all of the inside stories and the hidden information and, there's a cell phone recording of this. It's like, no, let's all go to the theater and be surprised. I think that that's what the movies are supposed to be about.
Now, speaking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, who I think a lot of people will say is one of the characters you're best known for voicing, especially now we can go over 18 years. Would you say that you've grown along with Kenobi? You started voicing him, we can now officially say turn of the century, which makes me feel old, but okay. And now you're doing it 18 years later. You say that, how do you picture Kenobi now versus when you first walked into the studio in 2001?
Oh, that's a great question. I have a greater love for him, even though I loved him so much then and couldn't have imagined at the time that I was going to get to voice, Obi-Wan in any capacity. And so now it's like visiting an old friend, who's sitting on the desert in Tatooine. But it's a lot of fun, and it is nostalgic for me, and it's humbling for me. And I try to think of, I really try to give a little Alec Guinness, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and a little Obi-Wan from Ewan, and combine them, and so you get my Obi-Wan Kenobi. So mine's really an homage to both, but it's also just showing my love of the character. Because I think Obi-Wan is really the true believer in it all. I think he's the one that really believes in the Force and the Jedi Code and all of that, and he believes Anakin's the chosen one, and, he goes to the mat for it all, and that's what I love about the character.
Now, we're speaking with James Arnold Taylor, voice actor extraordinaire. You can check out his podcast, which is called Talking to Myself. Also, you can find his show, which you can see on YouTube, which I've watched many, many times. And you can see a demonstration of all the voice actors that he does. Speaking to us here on Get Your Geek on Freedom 1160 Radio. One last question, and I always want to leave with the fun one, because that's always the memorable one. One of your characters that you have voiced comes to life and wants to hang out for 24 hours. So my question to you is, who is it, and what are you doing for that 24 hours?
Oh, wow. That's a great question that nobody has ever asked before.
No, wait a minute. Are you yanking my chain?
No, seriously. That's a beautifully unique question. I love it. I think Obi-Wan probably would be the one, because you could really get the most wisdom from him. You could learn so much from him. Although I've been many wise old wizards and things like that as well. I did the voice doubling for John Hurt for many years, and so he played Professor Broom in the Hellboy series, and he was just fun. I'd love to sit and hang out with him just to hear his voice. But I definitely wouldn't do Johnny Test, because that would just get so obnoxious after a while. Although Ratchet would be fun too, because he's just kind of up for an adventure. I don't know. I guess Obi-Wan probably.
All right. So we got to get Obi-Wan Kenobi and James Arnold Taylor, but you go to Vegas for 24ur hours.
Well, I don't know about that.
That's not the game you're looking for.
I have a bad feeling about this. That's what I would say.
Well, I'll tell you what. You could always hang out with Matthew McConaughey. Yes, you could. Yes, you could.
All right.
Okay, so James, we want to thank you for calling in, taking the time out here. Wonderful guest. Thank you so much, sir. Make sure to check out his podcast, Talking to Myself. You have a very pleasant evening, and a Merry Christmas to you and to your family.
Well, thank you. Same to all of you guys. I really appreciate it. And, of course, may the Force be with you.